Well, here we go. And the topic is feminine violence. I'm joined by three women I trust very deeply to engage in this conversation. I was thinking about how I might introduce you all individually, but as I've been reflecting here, perhaps it's enough just to say I have known and see in you all a unique form of leadership, just in the beings that you are. It shows up in different ways, and over the course of the conversation, perhaps how you show up as women in the world may become apparent. Of course, those of you tuning in, you can check out the descriptions to hear a little more. In fact, if you've been following the project a little while, you would have heard Adriana, Pamela, and Valeria, either on the podcast or in different network sessions. So, there's something quite on the edge about this topic and challenging to presence, in part because it takes something tremendously deep and broad, but invites a particular angle in, as if all there was to speak about the feminine was violence. Seems rather unfair. And why not something on the face of it much more positive and easygoing? And what about the violence of men? Of course, which matters. And so, even from the perspective of the listener, I think there is a certain complexity to take on just in opening into the topic. It strikes me that feminine violence is something which is shadowed in our culture in many ways, both in the sense of opportunity to understand it and bring it into presence, perhaps among women, certainly among women and men. And there's something interesting about that. I think it also speaks to not only that we might keep it out of the conversation for whatever reason, but that when things are kept in the shadow, it strikes me that there may be additional power to that. It might be even more influence in some ways, a different shape, different power of shaping associated with it. And so I'm not sure how much of this introduction is even worth keeping, to be totally honest. And so it might just be best to pass it over to the three of you without asking anyone in particular. I'll just leave it open to the silence and I'll tune out. How do you find yourself relate to this topic, and why in the invitation I sent out, was it something you felt called to say yes to? Like, why is this significant? And thank you all again.
So I'm noticing being nervous about it. So my hands are a little bit wet. And just before we started recording, I shared that I just dawned on me how sacred this conversation is, and I lit a little candle here next to me with the intention of goodwill. And I think when I saw your email, Tim, it was very important to me. I don't know if I would have said yes to this conversation in any context. The people that are here matter. I know Pamela, and I know Valeria, and I know you, and I know the people that are attending the session. And I trust your listeners, and I trust the cauldron that you hold or that you invite in to explore these complex topics. So I think that this felt very important to me, because I, in a world that still has lots of physical violence, and that many of my friends work with domestic violence, for me to really explore and go deep into female violence, it feels it had to be in a spirit of generosity of everyone involved. So yeah, that's what I'd like to start with. Excited to be here.
Thank you, Adriana. I can notice when you share that your intention of the sacredness of this conversation, and that you have lit a candle of goodwill. It really touched me. I could just say, oh yeah, what if that could be like the glue that keeps difficult or complex conversations together, like just goodwill, like to lean in and to lean back and to open deeper and to listen more and ask more than assuming that I know what you mean or what you say, or who you are or what you do. So I could just know like, oh, that felt so good. So thank you for doing that. And I could notice my first impulse for entering this conversation was to make a couple of distinctions, because what are we really talking about, and is my word the same as your word? So just to clarify a bit before we go deeper in. And one thing for me that I feel called to make a distinction about is feminine. I would like to invite, or that's where I will say that's where I will stand in my way of speaking in this conversation, as the feminine as a psychological principle that both men and women have within, and when it also is embodied within women. So that for me is a valuable distinction. And also that I have noticed in conversation around violence that there seems to be a tendency that people will go to violence means physical act, like hitting, or some kind of physical abuse towards someone else. And I think for me, I will bring into this conversation that violence is every act that reduces another human's life force, freedom, or their subjectivity to be who they are. So for me, that's I put that these distinctions as a part of the conversation for maybe, for me to feel good about diving deeper and having the possibility to bring people within in the thinking of it. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. I noticed that ever since Tim invited us to this conversation, that the word violence is one that I don't have a good grasp on. This I don't, especially the broader meanings of how violence is using in the discourse. I'm not convinced that I can see the benefit in a lot of the uses. So I feel a little bit lost in the conversation when I'm not clear what violence is, what is exactly that it is pointing to. Is it like a coercion? It can be coercion, punishment, forcefulness. There's all this things there that it's not. I would love to hear. I mean, Pamela already offered what your view on violence is. So that is a little bit where I am, a little bit stuck into thinking. On the other hand, I mean, when I hear what is talked about male violence in the non-physical form, it's very easy for me to find parallels in things that are more typically feminine. So that is something that I could talk about. But one image that is appearing in my head that I would like to show to talk about is: have you guys watched Moana or Vaiana in Europe? There is this goddess, and then they kind of take away her heart, and she transforms into a lava monster, and then they give back the heart, and she is like the nurturing Mother Nature again. So I think that's the image that I have in my heart, because she is such an expression of female rage and female, like, exploding in lava, and also the nurturing mother, and she transforms from one to another depending on how much contact she has to her own heart. Even the fact that the heart has been stolen from her. I think that is an image that captures some things for me that I think I would like to offer here.
Thank you, Valeria and Pamela. It was great hearing you both, and I really appreciate also the distinctions that you brought in, Pamela. And I actually researched the etymology of violence, and then I was so it started being used as force, but physical, but it changed into everything that can mean what Pamela said, basically reducing another human. But I think that the added distinction I'd make is intentionally, because unintentionally is something else. And also another distinction is sometimes somebody's going to feel violated, but that doesn't mean there was violence. So that's also something else, because I do see, and then I'll make the last distinction, because I appreciated the feminine, female. And in my mind, when I came here, I came to speak about female violence. So in women, that's what I thought. But I'm happy to jam. But, and the reason why I wanted to talk about the intentionality, and also that somebody can feel violated without the other one having the intention, is because to me, there is a very important role that I'm actually really wanting to activate in especially older women, which is super strong boundaries. It's like, it's not fun. It's not a fun energy for the recipient. And it can feel like rude. It can feel, and I think for example, if I see some of our leaders in, like Trump or Putin, or it feels like they would benefit from some strong, not that they would respond to at this point, but female going like, no, stop it. It's just, so that kind of like energy, I don't see as female violence, basically. It's coming from a different place. So, but there is, over the years, I think the distortion has become so interesting with the disowning of power. And I don't, not just disowning of power. I think, over centuries, maybe women have lost their ways with their own power in modernity, and in their recognizing their own power. And I think, alongside with that, with feminism, there is a confusion sometimes with harshness and maybe violence. So I think it's important for me when I think of violence. Actually, sometimes is not even. We're gonna get there, but it doesn't sound as harsh. Actually, the most violent things that I can think of in the female expression, they are very veiled. So that's So I'd just like to throw that in.
Thank you for bringing in the word violate, because that clicked it for me. Violence is that which violates. That is the word that I needed. And thank you for the image of having Trump have somebody that should tell him, like, that is some kind of feminine power that has not. I will be honest, this conversation is particularly loaded for me, because a lot of how I feel in relation to it, I was not raised to accommodate. I was not raised to understand and to be the good girl. I was raised to.
Lucky you.
We can get into that. I don't necessarily know if that is that lucky. I was raised to be the strength that my mother has never learned, and because she disowned what I see is the kind of feminine power that I don't know what the feminism is doing with us. But there is a feminine power in understanding, in accommodating, in caring for the guys, in realizing that, sorry guys, but there is a way in which the male ego needs some kind of special care because, I don't know, maybe guys have this need to affirm themselves and know to be strong and we are there to provide them with this strength sometimes, there is this kind of feminine wisdom that nobody talks about, but there used to be a time when we kind of women learned that to be careful not to emasculate the guys, you just kind of prop them up a little bit until they find their real strength, so they don't have to do the macho thing and kind of press us down so that they can feel better. You kind of open the arms, you open the heart, like the mommy opening the heart so that the arms off, so that the boy can come crawling into that safety. And even the girlfriends and the wives kind of like, honey, I'm here. You can feel your sweetness. You can feel your tenderness with me until you find the real strength and then go there. And every once in a while tell them off because, that kind of power we don't talk about. And then somehow I feel sometimes there is an over expectation that the guys kind of compensate for that care that we are not giving them. And then everything becomes difficult and distorted, and we need to amp up the more harmful side of the female power. That is the kind that can just destroy them. That can really hurt. Sometimes without us even noticing. It's like if the intention is what makes it violence, if the intention is not what makes it violence, that might be a very important point. But the fact is that we often hold the power over their hearts, over their minds, over their reputation, that we need to own that. So that is, I guess I'm here to defend the guys a little bit.
Thank you for the sweetness, Valeria, when I made a joke. And also there was truth in it, because to find your way out of the good girl, it's hard work, as any other thing that you have been conditioned into, and also for me, what you just open up is like almost like a total different direction. And at the same time, it's not, because for me, it's one of the things where I can see in my own life in the way I have done feminine violence is to emasculate my husband, for example, while not being able to do what's I would say, like in the tantric tradition, is a part of like one of the core is that the feminine is called to worship the masculine, and the masculine is called to adore the feminine. And I think you put so beautiful and elegant words on, like what is the power when you are like a master in that dance of truly being able to worship the masculine, and by that the man in the dynamic, and how much violence women actually can bring to the table if they're not have that wisdom and are not taught that, or taught to be strong, independent women that is actually hyper independent, and by that in very often a constant like competition or battle with the man and the masculine, and the what happens with the polarity within that, and what happens with the dance within the man and the woman, and where I see and where I sit with the perspective. I, as a woman, do not bring out the best in men, and I don't bring out the best in me, and I don't bring out my true power. I'm actually competing in a power it's not really mine, and it doesn't make me the best version of me as a woman or the feminine. So, yeah. Yeah, and maybe I will stop here as a way of responding to what you brought in, and will like bring as another impulse that I felt while you were speaking, and that was Tim's, your word was echoing for me. It's like why was I called to show up in this conversation? And yeah, one reason is that for me personally, it's fascinating. It's been fascinating to find wherever my feminine as a psychological principle is like being violent, no matter if it's like towards my children or my partner, or like in groups, or like just to see that feminine shadow of mine that can, for me, it's been it's not as easy to like grasp or to see, because it's a bit subtle. And I feel that in our like culture collective, the focus is more focused on when you hit someone, like when you're physical violent, or when you capture someone and keep them imprisoned, or when you go to war and you're like aggressive, or if you are like loud in a conversation, like you seem like what's coming, like violence that comes more with force. Like I'm from Sweden, so in my culture, because we're also in a consensus culture, and I'm a part of a very postmodern culture, and I'm a part of the Western culture and the Nordic hemisphere, and so that's very often what I have been like. That's what's talked about more in the mainstream and general, and when I grow up as a young girl, like what people were speaking to me about was like, yeah, if he hits you, walk at the first hit, like, or do that or do this. But no one ever talked to me about like manipulation that actually can take away the power in another person. Like how I can be violent in the way I relate to other people, like using the relationship as the power tool. And that no one talked about that. And also right now, if I go away from the personal and look at like the zeitgeist we live in, the postmodern culture and the zeitgeist, and I wouldn't more say it like, if I look at the feminist movement that I was strongly a part of like 30 years ago, and now I feel we're more living out the shadows of that feminine, feminist movement. And I position myself right now as somewhere holding between the old and maybe the new feminine or female or feminist movement that is coming, without pendulum swinging back to trade wives and or boss bitches, like swinging in the pendulum, but really like saying like, okay, if the pendulum now have swinged on the other side, like as a reactive response towards what we have done so far, and we are like now swinging in the other direction, saying like, hey, if I'm like stepping out of that pendulum swing as much as I can, because I'm a part of that movement, and saying what's actually emerging on the like edges of our awareness, or like in pockets of coherence, a new kind of culture. And there, for calling more of that in, that's my reason to be in this conversation, because one of the conversations that I've been asked for the last year more and more is to speak into the violence of the feminine, or the shadows around it. And right now, when I look at our postmodern culture, I see a lot of girls dressed as women or as men screaming for justice and being, and of course I'm over-exaggerating a bit, but I'm painting a picture, and still I'm pointing towards something. And are pointing fingers to especially then men and white men being aggressive. And by that, we're not owning our own aggression. Like, we're pointing out there. And I believe that one thing that's needed for the movement that I see is coming, that still is talking about like feminism and female empowerment, is pointing towards what is the aggression that we need to integrate within ourselves as women, for be able to hold aggression as something sacred, something healthy, and something that's life-serving and sacred. And I'm going back to, I think it was you, Adriana, who brought in the intentionality. Like, I personally, doesn't mean it's true. I learned through my life that I've been wrong many times and will probably be wrong many times if I have the possibility to live towards being a very gray or white-haired woman. It seems to be like one of the things we really need to integrate right now is our own aggression. And to be curious enough to see how it plays out that we're not aware of. And that's what's the thread I lost. That aggression in itself is something that is necessary, a part of human nature, nothing that should be suppressed or pushed away, but giving the right conditions, the right places, and the right intentionality for that force to be in service of life. And just saying that I feel, for me, where I'm at right now, it seems to be vital. Also, if we look at that, we are like in a meta crisis. And I meet so many men in the age between 30 and 40 that act like sneaky betas instead of being alphas to get laid, and are trying to like suppress both their aggression, their sexuality, and their like taking energy. And taking energy for me, again, is just a part of one of many ways of working with energies. And it's about taking away whatever is not true as well. So it's about like, if we have a generation of men in our society that are, I don't know what word to use, but that part of them is dormant. I believe that we might have a big challenge if our society is really threatened by existential crisis or whatever reason. And I think I will leave it here, and we'll come back in and see what happens in the conversation now. Thank you.
Yeah, well,
I feel nervous now.
No, it's a lot of good stuff, which is in the cauldron here, and I think what's coming up for me is this. Tim brought in the I think maybe even before we recorded, I'm not sure, but the notion, in the indigenous cultures of Australia, there's men's and women's business held really separately, and it's so clear what's men's business and women's business. And when it's so clear, then the leader of men's business wouldn't be told by a woman what he has to do in his domain, but he can get advice, and vice versa. Now, in modernity, we live in this mishmash. It's still controversial when I go and give talks or speak and I make a stand for the female mind. It's controversial. It's a controversial thing. So if it's a controversial thing that so we're all here, we know we're women. We understand, there's this underlying current that somehow the abstract modernity has become so divorced from the body and from experience that we can still believe somehow that we're neutral. There's we live in this neutrality and that thoughts created by a human body is neutral and that it serves everyone. So, so I just came from the Integral conference, and when I gave a talk there, I said, I feel like I'm coming to men's work, and I love it. Thank you. This is great. Welcome me in, because we're in modernity. We need to kind of we are in this mishmash. When Tim also said in the beginning of this conversation, I also think non-recorded, what's the role of the men participating here? And even the listeners, this is sacred. Maybe this is sacred women's business. However, I think this is the mess that we're waking up in. We're waking up in. We're not in small little tribes anymore in which the inner and the outer are linked by people. So women are the holders of the inner, and the inner can destroy human emotions and reputation and intimacy. And yes, that's the domain of women, but it's linked to the men that lead war and protection and all of that. So now we have all these things completely separated, and women have no idea what they're the leaders of. So we have this culture in which we say we're powerless, right? That's the language. We don't have power, and we're fighting for power, and we're fighting for a power that looks and feels masculine, male, not all the time, but in a lot of context, really. Even Moana, which was the example you gave, Valeria, she's beating the guy up. The guy's a loser. The guy's a loser. I'm well, the guy's a hero and he's a loser. Even that, we're kind of painting that kind of picture. So I think we're really lost in our powers. And I think for women to start having these conversations really honestly, we have to own sexual power. We have to own that if we wear something that we are moving energy, and we know we're moving energy. Look, it's different now. And I'm just postmenopausal. It's fascinating to me because I'm kind of enjoying looking at the journey with my eyes wide open. When you are really aware to what's happening, it's fascinating. The whole thing is fascinating. But I can see how women feel. For example, a lot of women that I work with, they feel hurt by modernity or by being invisible. So that creates an anger. They feel invisible, right? So they were visible before, which is a visibility they fought against because it's not owned. So I don't want it. Don't look at me. Don't look at me. Don't sexualize me. But I'm going to, so we're very clumsy and very immature with the way we navigate our sexual power. We probably don't even put it in the category of power. We'd say, power is still money and status, but sexual power in young women moves everything. Oh my goodness, it moves worlds. And so we don't deal with that. We put that on the corner. And then when we lose it, that particular energy, which to me, it proves to the innocence of it. It shows the innocence because I'm writing about this stuff. I ask questions. I ask men, I'm are you ignoring these women? They're no. I'm not ignoring anyone. And the women are really hurt. And what has happened is that the magnetism of that fertility time has gone. So in that way, she's not going to capture his attention or the gaze of the male in that way. And she walked her life with that energy. So she walked with it. So she feels when she doesn't have it. And I think it breeds resentment, but it's disowned power that gets resentful. And then on top of that, she tries to perform. So in the Integral Conference, for example, it serves me that I'm talking about this. So it's okay if I inverted commas, fail and have, in front of people, because I'm actually disclosing the female's mind. I'm going like, this is never meant for me. This clock ticking was never meant for me. The way of these panels, they're never meant for me. And I can't perform this way, but I'm going to reveal it how. So that gives me an allowance to be myself, which frees my energy. But women that are working with other things, wonderful things, amazing things that they want to be heard, it's very difficult because we have learned to speak male, really, like we became well-versed, and males are not well-versed in female. So if we really drop into like, let's talk women now, let's just talk how we talk if it was just us, it's a way the man would either zone out or like it's or it's something else, but it's not it doesn't captivate, or maybe captivates the curious ones, the curious ones, the interested ones. But so I think, so what comes to me is that we have disowned our power so much that when we disown our power, we have a lot of resentment. There's a lot of festering energy. To add complexity to that, we have a very complex biology, again, not validated by modernity, which is wonderful. It's a wonderful biology, physiology that offers us incredible capacities, also not seen by modernity. So to track our changing rhythms and our interfacing with the world that's constantly pressing and requiring, that speaks to Pamela's work, which is really bringing the present, being with the energy of the moment. I mean, that's such a superpower of women, I'd say, if we were in our power, I'd say that all of us would be able to just live like that. But a lot of us can't. So I think that I can't really separate the female violence from unacknowledged resentment, and I'll just say a couple of things that are coming to me, which is interesting. And I had a recognition just in a couple of weeks ago. So I'm doing some experiments now with couples, with men and women. So I'm not a couples therapist, and I don't want to be one. But what I do well now is I translate male to female, and I translate female to male, because I've been residing in the complexity of the female that even sometimes the woman can't explain. She can't word it. So I translate her to him when he's looking. And then when she's frustrated with him, I translate what I'm seeing. What I have seen a few times, which is fascinating to me, is that the woman comes to the session angry with the guy, and the guy has no idea that he pissed her off. Like, no idea. He's so oblivious. Now, she got that anger and she pinched him and kind of like, and she knew. So when I reveal that the woman knows a lot of the times when she has that fire in her belly and she wants to diminish him, she's doing that a lot of the times, what I'm observing, with awareness. Whereas I'm also observing that men in these situations are really just clumsy because of this neutrality, this fallacy of modernity that we're the same. They actually imagine that they can say in whatever tone to the woman that she wouldn't be offended. They imagine they can be whatever, but it's not true because we respond to things differently. So, yeah, that's what's coming up. Yeah, that's what's coming up for me. I'll just put this in our little cauldron here.
We have a lot here, don't we? There's so much coming up for me. It's one thing is like, I think one place where feminism took a bit of a wrong turn was when it kind of framed itself as men versus women or men against women, and our power is to work together, to fit well. And when it's like one versus the other, then that is already problematic, because it's what was supposed to be a message that, hey, like you are like the message with Trump, you're not doing your part well. What's going on here? Then it became a fight, one versus the other, a zero-sum game somehow. And I think that's something that I think we need to pay attention moving forward. The other thing that is strongly coming up for me is that I have been studying yin and yang in their native form. I'm even learning Mandarin for it. But and I think one of the difficulties with modernity is this, what John Vervaeke called the dictatorship of the propositional, of it's weird. It's an abstract world made of very reified entities that are very separated and kind of like, this is this is that, and this relates to that in some kind of, and it's this world that stays in the abstract, which I think I've heard even Adriana gesturing to it. It's not the world where we are the strongest. The feminine as the yin is the holistic kind of implicit in the Chinese. It's the implicit aspect, the right brain kind of aspect. It's not the this is black, this is white, and this is the line between the black and white. It's something that pays a more distributed attention to the whole and to the how the parts fit together. And in the Chinese philosophy, that's implicit. That's not what is talked about. It's what is lived. It's what is enacted. It's what is there, present. But because we live in this world that wants the things to be talked about in concrete terms and values so much that the verbal, I think that might be a place where we kind of have lost, well, the person that is really in front of us right now, this particular moment in this particular relationship, in this particular circumstance. And then we try to kind of get the algorithm for the abstract entities, and when we want to recover the feminine wisdom, we were forced into the more masculine mode because we need to kind of articulate and verbalize and talk about it and make it like in a way that is like, in a way where the ideas are kind of communicated instead of just the being, instead of just the little approval of or disapproval of what is said, of what is done. Or one thing that frustrates me often in conversation is that I want to make examples with concrete people, concrete situations. I want to talk about what actually happened. But that is somehow often considered like, yeah, that's almost like a less valued way of communicating, of talking about. You have to go into the abstract and live there, and then everybody's on the abstract, and that their abstracts map to something completely different in their concrete lives. And I'm sensing more and more into, when you think about feminine violence and female violence, and sometimes I get even emotional and almost crying, going back to the violence to the feminine, to this us here now to concrete relationships, to concrete couples, to concrete people. And if I feel into it, there is something in me that feels under-nurtured, but sometimes also violated by this flinching away from what is real. And then it will come out as this pinching that Adriana said, it's like this poking, this temper tantrum, this and maybe I'm also right now in this moment getting a little bit more understanding for the feminists that I was so resentful against, because maybe they have suffered from this violence, from this I don't know how to fulfill my proper role as a woman in a world that doesn't value the earth, the lived, the concrete, the body, the nurturing, the growing. It's all in the abstract geometric ideals. I don't know how to care for my men, for my sons, for my husband in a world that values that. And then we get weaker men, and then we get weaker women, and then we need to kind of try to fight in the only way that is acceptable, understood. So, yeah, I definitely did not imagine that I was the person who would kind of go back to the violence against the feminine, but here I am.
And not knowing how to be with our daughters. Not knowing how to be with our daughters. I feel that I've been truly blessed both with a daughter and a granddaughter. And I did not know how to be with my daughter when I became a mother. I started to raise her into a highly independent woman, and was waking up along the way, and in that I feel that I have brought a big amount of feminine violence onto her, of not me being the garden or that gave the right conditions for her to grow deeper into her power, for her to grow deeper into her cyclic being, and I feel also very blessed that I've been waking up more and more. So when she became a mother, I could do women's business. I had the possibility to be invited into the birth room of being her doula, so I could already bring from the non-local, non-verbal place the right conditions for my grandchild to put her baby feet into a different soil. And I spent both the 3 last months of the pregnancy by her side and the 3 first months with her daughter by my daughter's side to support her into the rite of passage to become a mother, that I see takes at least 3 years if you have the proper right conditions and support. And there I could support her to connect both to her instincts, like her very primal self, and I can look at my granddaughter, who is today 4 years, and she's wild, like she's a wild animal. And and they're like, I get very touched when I get into a relationship with the amount of violence I have inflicted on my daughter, and also my son, of not knowing better, of not having my own power integrated before I got them, or having the support that I needed to be able to be what I am more today. So, yeah, I get deeply curious, and that's a part of what I'm holding, to put motherhood back into the center of a society that calls in a generative culture. To put the right conditions for men and women and to flourish into their own power, so we can be powerful and highly collaborated together, including the third circle that I see is the fluid ones, however you want to name that circle, that has its own rite of passage and journeys and position in the tribe and the society. And it's not mine to speak of. I also looked at when you, Valeria talked about, like, the pinching, like how many pinching I have done in my life, and cutting balls, and what it required of me to lead with vulnerability, and allowing people to show up or not show up to what I need, desire, or my own boundary, but then giving people the full autonomy, and men the full autonomy to respond, and then me choose. As Adriana, you were speaking, like firm boundaries. What do I want here, close, and what do I do not want? But stop pinching and manipulating, and bring a lot of violence, and also a constant, like, if you live in a close relationship, of saying you're not enough, instead of saying I need something else or I need this. It's not about you, it's about me. And it's up to me, or if I allow myself to receive the right people around me who can give me what I am, without making myself smaller or wrong. And then I can notice I get so curious, because I relate so much, Adriana, out on my own, like field studies of sexual power in women. And I love the expression, sexual power in young women move worlds. Hell yes. That's so true. And yeah, I get so curious of, like, what's possible from there, really. Like, we have some old archetypical stories when women have come together and used that to change or bend or create metanoia or bend like reality, or ask men to show up in a different life-serving way, and by that changing culture. And that's also a part of, like, what I hold when it comes to, like, living Eros, like how can we can catalyze the generative cultures. So yeah, that's another conversation I would love to dive into. And then I also, and this also touches me really deeply, because it's still quite fresh. So I'm still have deeper integration to do. Just like I share this, I was a part of Thomas Hubel's community a couple of weeks ago in a social witnessing session, and it was about the gender violence and the Me Too and the Manosphere documentary and Andrew Tate and so on, like the postmodern cultural violence we talk about very often. And I was like, I could notice when I stepped in that there was like a calling to speak a perspective. And in the morning, it felt like there was like some kind of greater intelligence that initiated me in the morning, because one of my close friends called me and said that last night, her daughter that is 6 years old, shared that my friend's father, the child's grandfather, has sexually molested her. And I had like the trust to support my friend over the weeks, and especially that day with the first day, because it was like, of course, shock and devastation and grief and rage and all kind of human feelings. And at the same time, my friend has done quite a lot of inner work and also female work. So she has a good capacity to like move between her different inner parts, child parts, mature parts, archetypical parts, mother parts. And around lunchtime, we talked several times on the day, and around lunchtime, she was coming with and shared with me again, under the topic feminine violence, that I don't feel we speak about a lot in our society. Again, I'm back to how feminine violence very often plays out and control the relationships. That she could notice a small part in her, like a girl part in her own psyche, willing to sacrifice what was righteous and truthful and the most loving and compassionate for her daughter. That a small part in her was willing to sacrifice her daughter, like the truth of her daughter, to being able to stay in relationship with her own dad. And the amount of guilt that went through the mother, realizing that I am willing to denial, I'm willing to minimize, I'm willing to paint a more beautiful picture, I'm willing to question my own deep embodied sensing capacity. Because when her daughter spoke, both the father and the mother was present, and both could sense that the daughter spoke truth, that none of them were questioning it at all. And she said, like, I could notice I was willing to discard my own deepest intelligence to stay in relationship to my own dad, of that small part. And then she also had to realize that her daughter, actually a couple of months before, had named a situation where the mother in her body could feel, whoa, that's wrong. She felt disgust. She felt her dad walked over a boundary. And she tells her child in a very beautiful, like, all these right things that we have learned in parenthood of low emotional charge, like open questions, like being there and be receiving, and telling her child, like, that's wrong. I'm going to speak to him without guilting the child. And then almost a moment after she leaves the conversation with the child, she denies it. It just vanished out of her consciousness. And then at lunchtime, she realized that she has been a part of the abuse continuing for months. And there's not about like just holding space for her guilt, holding space for her shame, holding space, and still acknowledging, yes, you did. How can you own that you did? And at the same time, having the deepest compassion and understanding and fuck, it was wrong. And like the complexity of that moment. And how many mothers and aunties and sisters and grandmothers are silent when we see the feminine violence. And Dawn, we haven't been, as you so beautifully put words on, Adriana, before, like we haven't been trained, we haven't had the wisdom around us, like to do women's business, because we've been shattered out of like that modernity and postmodernity and so on. And still I'm asking myself, if not me, who? And if not now, when? And where? I don't know. How? I don't know. I just know I'm willing to try. I can just know I'm willing to like take one more step into that unknown and say, hey, when we're gonna gather, like I am a part of hosting Nordic Women's Gathering, and I just feel so clearly we just have to dive into aggression. We have one guiding question: what is womanhood in the 21st century? We have been gathering for 8 years. I just need to bring this question, like what is feminine violence, and just hold space together and anchor it and see what we learn, and yeah. And if we can learn how to do women business, I thank you for just like putting that into the space. I'm gonna use that going forward. Thank you.
I want to thank you, Pamela, for that image of the grandmother with her own hands bringing the next generation of women into the world with all the wisdom that you did not have when your child is born. You were serving your child as a mother and as a grandmother. And the arc of having participated strongly in the feminist movement 30 years ago, and now bringing your added wisdom into, but especially the concrete image of you bringing your helping bring your granddaughter into the world. That kind of. Thank you.
I also appreciated that. When I was hearing you, I was just thinking, and even when you were also talking about feminism, Valeria, I think just landing in the body, how long it takes for change to actually happen in bodies and in relationships, not abstract. We can know a lot of things, but actually to change the relationship is difficult. So I love how, you spoke about your changing, and then it was in the holding of the baby, yeah, it's, I don't know, there's some things coming up for me, which is because I heard the guilt, and I I feel it, and I hear it a lot in workshops that I run also. There's a lot of single moms that somehow get attracted to my work, and they're amazing because they're holding everything. I don't know how that's actually possible, because truly to be a provider and to hold men's business on that front and go to war every day, like putting up with shit and then having to come home and nurture and listen, if you have a difficult child, and cook and hold and put to bed, and it's just like such different capacities. So like these women, I can't separate the reality of the women I see. And when you spoke, Valeria, about you feel the pain, like you actually feel the violence in you. Like I feel it too. And I feel in the women that I work with. So it's like, we are these women. We are waking up in the middle. We're aware of our patterns, and we can see them as they happen, and then sometimes we see them after they happened, and to the best of our abilities we're starting to change little by little. But it's a generational project, and it's like multi-generational project. And I also feel there's sadness for me, because in a way, like Pamela, when you said I inflicted violence on my daughter, a side of me goes, okay, you can own that. But a side of me goes, actually, if I sit really true to the female, like, let's call it psyche, biology, mind, we're so embedded. I love how you brought in the implicit and the holistic, because it's not just in the yin, it's in the female expression, it's in our bodies. So we're so embedded that if we're raised by a culture that doesn't give us the capacities or the lineage, how could you have the lineage? I mean, we are made hormonally to mimic, like, until something happens, and so it's very difficult to wake up as an orphan of lineage, as a woman, as a woman, because we are these creatures that were made to live collectively. Like, our strength is in the collective. And I'm not saying that the male isn't, but there is something about, a body that was designed to like hold babies and be protected from from becoming prey. As you have a small body, and you have to have different capacities to attune to the collective, to dance together, to rely on each other. So, these capacities, we've been relying on completely broken systems. We have been trusting a culture that doesn't really have our best interest at heart, but we've been doing that naively. So then that reminds me of Alexander Bard's, when he talks about women being mythos, and the mythos, like the pathology of the mythos being naivety, like being the Instagram, fantasy world, because mythos is so embedded and so in love with reality, it's so magical by nature, that when you're divorced from the body and divorced from relationships and divorced from everything that nurtures you, you go to fantasy land. And you go to an affirmations world, and you go into a world, like you said, Pamela, that denies what we see, that accommodates what we shouldn't, that is silence. And I actually really think that one of the biggest expressions of female violence is silence. I actually think that it is a violence, because look, I have to also be, I have to be honest with the stakes. When speaking up, we come from a lineage that's speaking up truth, or may mean that you're burnt at the stake. We come, or it may mean that you're not heard. It may mean that you're not promoted. It may mean that you're fired. So you come with this baggage. Then you come living in a body that feels a certain way. Like, for example, today when I said that I lit my candle, I'm going to show my candle. Like, if this was like a few years ago, I probably would have lit the candle and not told anyone, because we're still doing the thing. We're doing the thing, but like you said, Valeria, do it implicitly. We create the container, we nurture, we hold, but that's implicit. However, it got to a point that everything that's implicit has been taken for nothing, as if it's invisible, it doesn't exist. And that's a violence against us, because that's our sacredness. Like, you're robbing us of what we hold sacred. That's the portal of birth and death. And it got to a point that modernity has disowned this so much that I think that we're just waking up. And maybe the first level of that is rage, or clumsy violence, clumsy resentment, clumsy, like, fuck. And as we speak more and more about it, as we learn more words, and I actually think this world of podcasting is fascinating to me, because it's a storytelling, right? Like we've become like global storytellers. So we left the tribe, which has been telling stories since forever. And then we started believing a story of abstraction in which we can create assumptions about people and believe these assumptions without checking. And then now we have this format, which is stories, and allows us to reveal ourselves and give words to things. And I actually think it has a sacred role of course correcting, of playing the intermediary between men's business and women's business. In a way, for example, if I look at us, what are we doing? We're doing a hybrid way of women's business. Maybe it's a modern way of women's business, in which we feel it's women here primarily. It has a sacred container, and yet we know this is going to be heard and about by men, and we have men here present, but they're silent and listening. So we're reclaiming the sacredness. We're speaking about the immanent, the implicit, the invisible, and yeah, and maybe to, a lot of the times when I work with men or have participated in podcasts, a lot of the times what I hear is surprise. I don't hear men going, I hear them curious. I hear them going, oh my God, I didn't know that. I can't believe I didn't do anything about it. It's not like, oh, I just purposely wanted to, just rob everybody of space. I think there's one more thing that's coming to me now, and I feel that I need to put this in. It's a little bit on the side of what I'm talking about, but I want to bring it in because it feels honest, and it's something like I'm a little bit embarrassed about if I'm truthful, but it's so if I in groups that I've been in, if I think about so I'm not talking about unconscious women or unconscious men. I'm talking about people that care and people that are doing the work on themselves in some way. If I am just with women, there's a lot of ridiculing of men that can happen between conscious women, so that I have witnessed it. I have been in it. It makes me uncomfortable because in my translating mind, I can see that they're misunderstanding behavior. But I noticed that I often commit a violence of also not saying that, what I'm witnessing. Why? Because I dance this very, I think it's a part of the dance of my work, which is trying to unravel like what I'm calling the spell of modernity in women's body. So in my body, but it lodges differently in my body as a Brazilian woman living in Australia. It would manifest for Pamela different, and Valeria and so forth. So I notice that it's very quick for a woman to shut down. If she feels criticized, she shuts down and the trust is gone. It's gone. So if I question her in that moment, that there is a camaraderie in the, let's call it a man bashing, but it's not so violent, but it's like a little bit ridiculing some behavior or whatever it is, then I'm seeing that as a way of us using our power, misusing our power. However, I actually don't know. I don't know how to, it's a delicate dance to keep the trust. It's almost a one-on-one thing. For me, in my life, it has only held, the trust only holds when it's one-on-one and really carefully done. If it's intervening in a context of a group, then some rupture happens, and then sometimes to bring back the trust within that group of women, it's fragmented, and that's an interesting thing for me, because I feel that one of the things that I feel very passionate about is creating context of trust between women, so we can talk about all the things that we're talking about here, in a way that we don't break the trust. And if I collapse completely in my shame, I can feel that Pamela or Valeria will hold me in good regard and will hold me in like, okay, you're collapsing, or there's something, but it's okay. You came here in good intention. So it's almost something. It's a very delicate thing. So, and when I check with men and I checked with male friends, when the conscious ones, the ones that work with them by themselves, on themselves, when they meet in men's groups, they don't do that. They actually get shocked when I say that I witnessed that, because they say, "Oh, wow! Like I would never feel comfortable talking about women this way." So that's an interesting thing that I've been experiencing, which is like, so we're working on ourselves. There are all these layers that we're working on ourselves, but then there is a relational component that is how our power is showing up and how we are diminishing men and being validated and creating camaraderie with our friends in groups of women that are doing good work in the world, like good women in all other, so that's interesting. That's an interesting place for me. I'm in conversation about that, like how to navigate that. That's I find it tricky.
I am aware of the time, but yeah, I guess from the place of considering all the violence that has been inflicted on the feminine from many sides over the years, and all the hurt that, or the malnourishing that it has inflicted on us, and all the difficulties. And again, Pamela, thank you for that image of, I did not learn how to be properly there for my daughter, but I'm there for my grandmother. That's just so beautiful. I cannot express enough how much that redemption, almost like a redemption arc. It's like this. I am thinking that sisters, we have work to do because the feminine needs to heal, and we are better equipped to heal it as women. It doesn't matter who has hurt us and how and what got lost and when it got lost. I mean, the men are called to heal it too. But it might be that the burden is stronger on us because we're better equipped to do it, and that gives us more responsibility. And there's a lot to do, so I feel intimidated by it. But if not me, then who? And if not now, then when? Right?
Thank you, Adriana, for bringing that, for me, valuable perspective around, like, one perspective about our nature. Like what you said, like we are like hormonal, designed to mimic, and in that, like when I shared about that, the guilt, and like you said, yeah, but that's another perspective as well, and yes, you're so right in that. And for me, I can notice like there comes up a tension of like, also because I also am aware of that, because we are the prey and we are like this, like there is this like the feminine psyche can collapse into the victimhood, and in that, for me, is a source of the feminine violence. Like if I'm not also, yes, that's true, and it's not a reason for owning my own responsibility, and that elegant dance of both and I can notice it just because what I witnessed is how much of the feminine shadow that lays within the victim narrative, and also because of our biology, like we have a tendency, and that's also true. So just like how to massage that edge. So I think I will. Thank you. It's been a great pleasure to explore and investigate and inquiry in this dialogue. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know if we're closing completely, but yeah, it's been a pleasure, and I think maybe just the opening. Now I'm like, now that I heard all these, the cauldron is lit. Yeah. Good inquiry.
Well, thank you all. I feel I've been witness to something special, and in the time we have left, might be nice to, if you're open, just invite a few reflections. Simon, I will bring you into the conversation here, add your spotlight. I could surely find some words, but Simon, if you have something to share, I think I'd be more interested to hear how you would reflect on this.
So first of all, thank you very much. I deeply enjoyed, but also appreciated being invited to witness and to sense with. So there were multiple occasions during the conversation where I was very, very deeply moved, and I was sensing my body as a sort of instrument dancing with the conversation, and also to feel where do things resonate, but also where do things contract, where there is hurt, where is there the resistance to receive, but also the will to do the pinching myself. And that was very interesting to notice, and I'm sort of massaging my right shoulder. For me, what was illuminated here, and what also gave some words and perspective and made it also healing from my perspective, is to feel interiorly how the masculine and the feminine relate. And that has been a big process for myself in these last years, also in just personal life, personal practice. To feel how much constriction and restraint there is on the masculine for me internally. It's like my whole right shoulder and right arm feels fragmented, feels like it's hyper granularly channeled to make sure that no energy comes out directly, so that it's always reflected back on me. And I can feel that there is a charge there. There's like a big sadness, but also an outrage. And I can feel the left side of the body, which I relate more to the feminine quality, the listening quality. There's a silence there. Not a guilty silence, but there is like a bit of a move back. And I was feeling that dance between those two. And I could also sense like, the right side of the body resting. So there was tensing, but then also like putting it down and just receiving the words. And there was validation in that. Like this sense of like, the word emasculation was used. I think that's like a suppression coming from the wounded feminine and from the victimized feminine to never be wounded again. And in that state brushes any form of masculine power as dangerous. And then seeing how the transmission goes to young boys, and young boys who don't have any inkling of misusing any of that force, but learning very early, being conditioned to reject that in themselves, and thereby also rejecting a big part of themselves. So I'm painting that slightly larger, but that is my body as a site of inquiry for that and a mimic of that. So my deep appreciation, and I listened full-heartedly and full-bodily. So thank you very much.
Well, when I reflect now on where my energy is wanting to direct itself, there's a sense of a desire to just be silent and present in the space. And there's so much that colors that energy. I mean, it's appreciation and it's care and a sense for the sacred, and ultimately things which I trust I trust this. I trust the integrity that I've heard shared, and that was never in question. And so there's all of this content as well. I could have so many questions that I would love to invite further dialogue on. So many. And then I get enthusiastic about those because I love asking questions. But I also have this other energy with me, which isn't to do with this space at all. And it directs itself out. And it doesn't feel like a particularly feminine energy. It feels like the kind of energy that would be quite discordant if I was to all of a sudden share what it really is. It could almost sound like it's making it about me. It's not about me, but it is sufficiently different that it would be like, whoa, a time and a place. And it's an energy of contest. It's an energy that wants to contest other men, you know. And that is a natural part of me. And I suppose many men. And I feel at ease with that. And the kinds of men that I want to contest, you know, some of those have been referenced here. I really, in that mode of contest, I can feel a desire to defeat, I'll put it like that, some of these men, like Andrew Tate. Now, he stands as a paragon for something, and I'm not concerned with him as a being. It's not a practical thing exactly, but there is also this question of influence in culture and a tremendous frustration I have that a great deal of what is rewarded by society are performances of masculinity, which I find to be dishonorable, unattractive, perverted, boring, boring. And yet they seem to be tremendously effective. And so my frustration is in part aimed at structures. And I feel a motivation to continue the slow work of tending to the structures and relationships and whatever it is that can support the context for sharing in understanding and a clarification of perception that renders it trivially obvious what is an honorable man. I speak on behalf of my desire to be an honorable man, right, and what it is for men to see that, and so much of that, of course, is to do with what it is to treat women, like, obviously. And so I feel, appreciation and motivation, and also a determination, but it's a determination to doing things intentionally and slowly so that eventually, when the time is right, it'll be possible to be purposeful and even aggressive in the right way. I hope that wasn't too long in reflecting, but that's my honest sharing of what was present there. And just a huge appreciation and gratitude for you all.
I'm actually appreciating the emergent format of this, of like, it's very countercultural in a way. You have like 3 older women older than you, Tim, and you inviting in with your masculine energy. So I feel it's like us trying to craft new ways, new and ancient ways to work with these archetypes and these impulses. And I think that your impulse to conquest is necessary. Like, yes, bring it on, and now, and it's grounded with like the wisdom council, like, looking at Pamela and Valeria here, and then Rania is there, and it feels really beautiful to me. It feels like it's like the building of this new, I don't know, new and ancient way of moving in collaboration in a world that is globalized, that we don't know how to. Yes, I appreciated both of your reflections and.
Thank you, Adriana. As I've just mentioned in the chat, you're welcome to share some reflections. And if we prefer to turn the recording off, we can do that too. We will look to wrap up in about 5 minutes. Adriana's got a flight tomorrow morning. So perhaps Valeria or Pamela, if you'd like to just share some final words in closing, and then we'll bring the recording to a close, and they can be very short. Just would like to give the last word to you.
Well, I want to thank you, Tim, for using your, masculine conquering way for fighting against the stream. And as you said, we have like 30 conversations over the year, and there's this constant of you trying to fight for the relational to have more room, even in a world that does not value it, trying to kind of find your way and kind of sticking to it year after year after year after year. And I also want to express deep gratitude for Adriana and Pamela for your wisdom and for going over the hurdle of translating what is female into the guy's language. And also, articulating and putting words into it, and then testing words and fighting for it, and insisting and bringing and trying to make such a good contribution for bringing us into the conversation again. So deep gratitude, and thank for everybody else that is here.
I have no more words. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody.